The United States is not our friend. Donald Trump has turned the entire country almost into an enemy of what we stand for.
What if everything you thought you knew about the United States suddenly didn't feel true anymore? For decades, the name alone carried a kind of warmth. Movies, culture, fast food, even childhood fascination. From the Dukes of Hazzard to those first glimpses of McDonald's, America felt larger than life, and undeniably friendly. But something has shifted. That familiar sense of admiration is being questioned in real time, and not quietly either. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because this isn't just nostalgia, it's the beginning of a serious political rethink.
United States of America. The United States of America. America. I used to say America until I think a Venezuelan lady at one of my book signings asked me to stop saying that because it is a little bit, well, it's inaccurate, isn't it? It's a continent, not just a country. The United States of America. What do those words do to you when you hear them? What did they used to do? I remember the first time a friend of mine went to the States, and it wasn't the best present I've ever received, but it was quite thoughtful. He brought me some condiments back from all of the fast food joints that he visited, because this was before I'd ever seen a McDonald's in the flesh. I forget what year McDonald's in Kidderminster opened, but my friend Timothy went to the United States of America before McDonald's opened in Kidderminster. It was like some sort of mythical, golden arches, literally. And he brought me back a bag. He brought me catsups. It was called catsup. It seemed so glamorous. Beef burgers, hamburgers. Seems so glamorous, the United States of America. I'm not joking now. Cultural reference points, first things you thought of, first things that said the United States of America to you. Again, I'd have to check the dates, but the Dukes of Hazzard would be quite high up on my list. It's the two modern-day Robin Hood, Beau and Luke Duke, and, of course, the inimitable Daisy. It was always a warm feeling, right? And then you learned a little more as you grew older about the role, albeit somewhat belatedly, that the United States played in both world wars, most crucially, of course, post-Pearl Harbor in the second, and the argument, despite the deification almost of Winston Churchill, that without the intervention of the United States of America, it's unlikely that the Nazis would have been defeated. And you come away with an even warmer feeling. We know a little bit about Nixon or Vietnam. I mean, it's not a perfect country. The friendship, the relationship, the warmth between Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, for good or for ill, was very real, although it didn't extend to helping us out in the Falkland Islands, of course. And then Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George Bush, George W. Bush. You sort of run through the US presidents and everything was, if not hunky-dory, then relatively amicable. Barack Obama, Joe Biden. And then you come to today. And the extraordinary... I mean, I mention that because I just want you to get a pin. You know, if you're dropping a pin on a map, I want you to drop a pin on your personal calendar. Any pin at any point in your life, how did you feel as a Brit or as a resident of these islands? How did you feel about the United States of America? And I am going to say to you, it was positive. It was a positive feeling. Even, I think, the Iraq War, opposition to it was enough to excuse the regimes on both sides of the Atlantic. Not excuse, that's the wrong word. But detach. You could despise that intervention, although it's 20/20 hindsight that really revealed how ridiculous it was, without feeling anything negative towards the entire country or towards the future relationship. To the future relationship between our country and theirs. I suspect, and I don't know this for sure, I suspect that the special relationship always looks a little bit more special from this side of the Atlantic than it does from the other side of the Atlantic. It's a unique relationship. They're celebrating their 250th anniversary of independence from us this year, not from anybody else. I mean, if history had played out slightly differently, it would have been the Dutch that had the upper hand in colonial America, but we managed to snatch that prize and then lost it subsequently. So there is a unique historical relationship, and there is the commonality of language, of course. I think it was Oscar Wilde who said that it's two peoples divided by a common language, because American English and English do have slightly different interpretations in many ways. But you think quite warmly, right, about the United States of America until now. Until now, because Donald Trump's depravity is just his base awfulness. Is such that he has managed to pollute that future where you just presume, like night follows day, that the United States of America is our friend and our ally, and crucially, it will usually be at our side when push comes to shove. Usually, not always, not at Suez, not in the Falklands. And it's not true anymore, not least because it would be a reciprocal relationship, which would mean us getting involved in Donald Trump's next mad expedition, just as Keir Starmer was categorically and completely right not to get involved in this one. And that's why I think that George Robertson's comments are much more interesting than his comments last week, about which are essentially a bloke who works in the military-industrial complex saying, can we please have more money for the military-industrial complex? Now, look, stop clocks and all of that, of course. It looks like a period in British history where we really should be looking to our guns. But you will never find a senior soldier or anybody attached to the military-industrial complex or anybody attached to the Ministry of Defence. You will never find a senior character from those worlds who doesn't say we need more money for defence. So it doesn't mean it's not true. It just means it's a little bit dog bites man, right? And I think if he hadn't added, let's take it from the welfare budget, then it probably wouldn't have got the... it wouldn't have seen the bearing of the tabloid fangs last week. It was the fact, A, it offered an opportunity to attack Keir Starmer by ignoring the fact that George Robertson was talking about successive British governments, and B, it offered an opportunity to do what is now fast replacing racism as the favourite hobby of the right, attacking people in receipt of support, state support for a variety. Take it off the welfare, take it off all those people pretending to be sick, take it off the shirkers, don't ask any questions, don't do too much research. I definitely know they're all swinging the lead because my wife's sister's, husband's, brother's, window cleaner's cat's original owner lives in Lanzarote on universal credit. So that gets it propelled onto the front pages as well. But this has got to be more interesting, right? A former defence minister, a former NATO Secretary General, saying that Britain's military dependence on the US is no longer tenable. No longer tenable. He points not just to Iran and the hideous, unprovoked attack there, but also to tariffs, the levying of tariffs on traditional allies, and most jarringly of all, for him, the threat to wrest Greenland from Denmark. God, the madness moves so quickly, doesn't it? Had you forgotten about that? You've forgotten the President of the United States of America publicly stating his intention to steal a sovereign NATO territory? No? So, the United States is not our friend. Donald Trump has turned the entire country almost into an enemy of what we stand for. He has torn up the historic concord, the historic warmth. I mean, not quite 250 years, because I imagine relations were a little bit frosty in the immediate aftermath of the War of Independence. But certainly in the context of our lifetimes, or in the context of the 20th and 21st centuries, it was one of life's certainties, you know? Wasn't it? In the context even of relatively modern politics. You could have a few things that you could say with complete certainty. Your football team will let you down. Nigel Farage will lie. And the United States of America is our friend. And it's not anymore. We've talked about American politics a hell of a lot on this programme, and we will, I think, continue to do so. A, because it's fascinating, B, because it's important, and C, because it is my show, and I find it absolutely riveting for a whole heap of reasons, some of them historic. But sometimes the really big stuff can get swallowed up by the little stuff. That's what the cliche means, isn't it? When you can't see the wood for the trees. Quite often with cliches, we use them without ever stopping to think what they really mean. I love that. I mean, a rolling stone gathers no moss. What does that mean? It means you're zipping around so fast that you're not actually picking anything up. You're not actually making any meaningful observations, or you're not learning anything because you're in such a bloody hurry. You can't see the wood for the trees. What does that mean, you can't see the wood for the trees? Well, it means you're focusing on the trees. So you're talking about raccoons' penises and Pulp Fiction quotes instead of talking about the fact that the relationship with the United States of America is over. And I can't quite see it being restored to where it was 5 years ago, regardless of what happens next. Because if you're building military policy, an entirely new dimension has been introduced to your thinking. If you were building military policy in the 1980s or in the 1990s or in the noughties, in the 1950s or the 1960s or the 1970s, of all the pieces on the table that you have to assemble into a domestic defence policy, there's two pieces that have gone in the last 10 years that 20 years ago no one would have thought possible. They wouldn't even have known they were pieces. You've got the allyship of the United States and you've got the membership of the European Union. And in the last 10 years, two things that would, if you like sporting analogies, they'd have been first on the team sheet. The things that were absolute stone-cold certainties. They were so baked in to any interpretation of UK defence policy that you probably wouldn't even have put them on the list of things that need to be taken into consideration because they were so absolutely part of the furniture, right? The United States is our ally. We can rely upon the United States militarily. We are, if you prefer, dependent upon the United States of America militarily, and we are in the European Union and NATO, and NATO is a big deal. All of these things have gone. We're not in the European Union anymore. NATO is increasingly under threat from Donald Trump's depravity, and the United States of America is no longer our friend.
For years, figures like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher symbolized what many called the special relationship, a political, cultural, and military bond that felt almost unbreakable. Even later leaders like Barack Obama and Joe Biden maintained that sense of cooperation, even when disagreements surfaced. But now, the conversation has taken a dramatic turn, and one name dominates it: Donald Trump. The argument being made is blunt and deeply unsettling, that Trump's leadership hasn't just disrupted politics, it may have fundamentally damaged how allies view the United States itself. From aggressive trade tariffs to controversial foreign policy decisions, critics say the reliability of America as a partner is no longer guaranteed. And that's where voices like George Robertson come in, warning that Britain's heavy military dependence on Washington may no longer be sustainable. This isn't just political gossip or media noise. It's a serious strategic question. If the United States can no longer be counted on in the same way, then what does that mean for global alliances and for the future of Western unity itself? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video.